The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
We all want to win the Stanley Cup.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Playoff edition.
It's over! They did it! They did it!
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. This is Adrian Hernandez. I am so darn excited to be in front of you and in your ears today as we preview the Stanley Cup playoffs and the quest for a repeat for the Colorado Avalanche. I am here today with Ezra Parter, Jackie K, Jacob, and Evan. We have a full panel today. Shouldn't surprise anyone given the playoffs are absolutely here. I heard today that Josh Manson went back to the room after practice and was singing "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year," which typically it's a Christmas song, but if you're a hockey fan, it's also a song you sing in the middle of April. Once again, this is the Mile High Hockey Lab. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoy what you listen to or are watching today, please subscribe and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. We have so much to talk about. We're going to have a little bit longer of an episode today. Basically, we're going to go through our previews. We are fortunate enough to have more than a few contributors and a couple of them here that wrote articles to preview kind of the forward group, the defensive group, and the goaltenders. And we also had a roundtable that Jackie kind of spearheaded that I want to get into a little later on, just talking Avalanche and Seattle Kraken. So let's just get right into it, and we will start with previewing the forward groups. If I'm not mistaken, this was your article, Evan, Mr. Managing Editor. So I'll give you the honors here. Tell me if there is a person on the Kraken's lineup that you're concerned about. Who is it and why?
A certain person. I guess I don't know. I talked about him a lot in the article, but I'm looking at Tolvanen. I'm looking at Eli Tolvanen. I mean, just I remember when he got waived, it was chaos. It was like, first off, what is Nashville doing? First off, and then
Right.
second, where's he gonna go? Because he's good. He's a good caliber player, and Seattle was the one that picked him up. So, I'll be interested to see what he does. See if he can provide anything from the depth of the Kraken. That's kind of their strong suit, and I kind of mentioned it too earlier in that article. Is that's where they might be the Avs, is their depth.
Okay.
But I'd look at Tolvanen probably for that.
That makes sense. When you mention their depth, I feel like is that more to do with, I'll send this to you, Ezra. Do you think that has more to do with the fact that the Kraken have a lot of depth, or that people are concerned that the Avalanche don't?
I think it's the Kraken's depth. I mean, the Kraken have a 20 goal scorer on their fourth line in Daniel Sprong, so they've got goal scoring spread out throughout their lineup. They've got some incredible offensive talents in the bottom six, and they don't have the top end that the Avalanche have, so they're relying on that depth. Every line is basically the depth line.
Okay.
Obviously, Matty Beniers is a top end forward, but as a rookie, which is impressive. But overall, yeah, it's the Kraken. They got some depth. We got some depth too. It's just different. It's more defensive minded.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's poignant of you, and we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of what I perceive and project in terms of how the Avs will play stylistically. But I want to send one over to Jackie. Jackie, is there someone on the Avalanche that you can see maybe exploiting their matchup and that you're excited about, and why might that be?
I'm going to give this one to the big man, Val Nichushkin. If projections are correct, it looks like Evan Rodriguez is going to be on the top line. And so Nichushkin will pretty much be headlining that second line, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think if the Avs are going to get a big contribution from anybody not named Makar, Mikko, McKinnon, it could be him. So I think, like, if you're looking at the Avs still having a bit of depth, I think you're going to get a big performance from him is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I feel that. I think we saw like a lot from Valeri Nichushkin in like the early part of the season. And I wonder if in this role back with the top six and with sort of a full top six outside of Gabe Landeskog, you'll see hopefully him get back to that early season form where I think he scored in like the first 6 or so games. I might be wrong about that, but I feel like it was a crazy number where he had multiple games with goals. So hopefully, like you mentioned, he can get back to that. The last one I have for you, Jacob, is big picture wise. When you look at the forward groups between Colorado and the Kraken, who do you perceive has the advantage?
Yeah, it's a tale of two halves, essentially, right? Like the expectation is kind of that the Kraken might have the advantage in the bottom six, and that's I think the chief concern coming into this series is that seems to be the most obviously exploitable part of the Avs lineup. Whether that's actually the case, it's going to be interesting to watch because I think like it discounts Lars Eller a bit, and that his game has really started to come on the last like week or 2 weeks or so. And so I think that that's going to be probably the headline thing to watch is how does the bottom six match up. But the top six, advantage Avs. The Kraken, they've got one high end player, in Matty Beniers, who he is scary. Like to me, he's the scariest guy on the Kraken just because his ceiling is the highest of anybody on that team. All you need to do is have one great night, and you can ruin the Avs' plans real quickly. And so, the Avs should carry the advantage in the top six, but Beniers I think is the big wild card in this series.
Okay, that makes sense. And I wondered because like I did the goalie preview today, and I feel like in that situation the Avalanche have an advantage, but I didn't watch enough of the Kraken to really have an opinion on their forward group. So I was happy that I got to go reference your article, Evan, where you did kind of a deep dive. And if you folks haven't seen that, please head over to milehighhockey.com. We have all of your playoff preview content, anything you might want. Podcast, here it is. You need articles, we got those too. But I'm excited because I feel like, this is an opportunity for that bottom six group for Colorado, in that there's a perceived disadvantage there for the Avalanche. And in particular, I have my eyes on that third line, which features if it's anything like practice today, it was Newhook, Malgin, and
Eller.
Connor?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm excited. Maybe not. I mean, mostly because I feel like I'm interested to see what Newhook and Malgin can do on the same line. Jackie, what do you think? Is there someone maybe in that bottom six that you have your eyes on in terms of this being an opportunity for them to step up?
Oh, that's a good question because I feel like all of them individually have been looked at over and over and over again this year to kind of hope for, can they give a little bit more? I think Newhook's the obvious answer. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what Ezra said about Beniers, or whoever was talking about Beniers. Sorry, it's the highest ceiling. I think that was Jacob actually. So like he has the highest ceiling in the bottom 6. It's tough though because I don't know. I do feel like we kind of seen what we're gonna get from all of them. So I don't know. I don't want to take the easy answer, but I think I'm going to. So New Hook.
Yeah, that's honestly I think what everybody wants to find out is where will New Hook position himself heading into the offseason in terms of his contract, and will he finally fulfill, although I think he's done just fine in terms of his potential to date based on his age, but will he be what I think more of the Avalanche fans that kind of just watch who scores every night, will those people be satisfied by Alex Newhook's performance in the playoffs? That's something I'm interested in definitely seeing. And I think like when we talked, Jacob, when I asked you about who has the advantage, you mentioned that it's twofold, right? And I think that the first part of your statement in that the Avalanche have a McKinnon and a Rantanen and a Makar, even though he's not in the forward group, I would consider him one of our more offensively productive and top line guys. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had your mic turned down. What'd you say there?
Say at any given moment he might be, in playing forward, playing left wing.
He hops into the play more than
center behind the net, and then he's back at defense.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that firepower goes further than maybe the bottom 6 depth might pose an advantage for the Kraken. What do you think of that, Ezra?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think the bottom line is the Avalanche have the top end talent to dominate this series, and if the bottom 6 gives up a couple more goals than they get, that's probably going to be totally fine. So, I mean, and honestly, I think it's also important to look at the bottom 6 as a defensive unit and not necessarily as an offensive unit. Like that fourth line specifically is shut down. That's what they do. And Lars Eller, that's what he's been doing since he's been here. Every time he's on the ice, except for one weird period in Arizona, he's completely shut everything down. So I think what we're looking for out of the bottom 6 is to take some pressure defensively off of the second line and let the top 6 free to score as much as they can. And I expect to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to put it. Like top 6, score as much as you can. that really is it. I feel like that. Evan, do you expect that to be like a equal contribution between McKinnon and Rantanen, or do you feel like I kind of feel like McKinnon might step into the Landeskog role, at least in terms of leading by example and leadership? What do you think of that?
I'd agree with that statement of McKinnon stepping into that kind of leadership role. And I guess in terms of play, I might give that more to Mikko.
Yeah.
Mikko can play down low. He's played in front of the net a couple times before. I know that. Same with Val. And I know it's the two could probably interchange things, go back and forth, working from the middle to the wing, so on and so forth. So I think both of them are gonna do their roles differently, but also at the same, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
that was not English. That did not work. But I'm glad.
It does. It makes sense. Yeah. Well, I'm excited because I think that those dudes have a potential to like set themselves apart in terms of their narrative about them being better with each other and with Landeskog and stuff. This has been a complete year without Landeskog, and now we're going into a complete playoffs without Landeskog. And then there's just one last thing I want to touch on in terms of the forward group. Are you at all surprised to see Andrew Cogliano and Darren Helm in contact jerseys, and seemingly everyone other than Landeskog was a full participant in practice today? Jackie, does that surprise you?
No, not so much, just because it's the playoffs, and
right.
If this was another regular season game, maybe a few of them would have been in red or not out there. I mean, it's good that at least all those guys were close enough to practice fully. I guess after Mulligan and Cogliano got hurt in the same game, I guess if you would have asked me right after that game if that both of them would be good to go in like 4 days, I might have been a little surprised, but it did seem like it was trending in that direction. So I guess it's good to know that they're starting as healthy as they can be, I guess, at this point, or as healthy as they want to be.
Yeah. I just wonder if, like, Cogliano in particular, he toe picks 2 games in a row, and the second one did not look good. The first one didn't look good, but just his reaction to the second one was pretty noticeably negative, and it gave me vibes of, like, people. Someone said he went for X-rays. I don't know how substantiated those rumors are. I wouldn't be surprised, though, based on how he went into the boards. I will say, though, we heard stories, and we talked about this like 20 editions ago, but Cogliano was the guy who got everyone together ahead of Game 6 in the Stanley Cup final, and most of the players agree and corroborate the story that, you know, it was him that stepped up and spoke and really struck a chord inside of the group that was at the meeting. So I'm excited to see him back, especially without Landeskog, you know, who's the most clear vocal leader of this Avalanche group. So that's the forward group, and thank you, Evan, for doing your work on that on the website. And like I previously mentioned, folks, if you haven't read the forward preview, head on over to milehighhockey.com, and Evan's got you covered. So we talked a little bit about Cale Makar and how he's basically a forward sometimes, but that is a good segue to get into the defensive preview and the defensive matchups. I'm pretty sure, Ezra, you had this article, and thank you for putting in your time and effort. So I'll start with you. Makar and Manson are said to return for Game 1. What do you expect from them, given that they're coming off of injury? Is it like green light, all full go, no stop, same pairings, typical ice time, or what do you expect from those two?
Well, you know, that's an interesting way of asking it, because you said, what do you expect from them? Are they full go? And what do you expect for ice time? I'll speak to the first part first, which is, I think, if they're in the lineup, they're full go. They're doing their thing. Manson in particular is harder to gauge because he was out for so long, came back, played really well, but in a short stint and got hurt again. So it's harder to tell what his threshold's going to be for re-injury, if it's all connected in some way. I had heard that they were disconnected injuries. It was 2 fluke things that worked against him, but obviously being out of the lineup doesn't help you be ready for whatever the next muscle tweak or you know, groin pull or whatever could be. So so for him, I'm a little more concerned. For Makar, he's just been chilling. He's been getting ready for the playoffs. He's been healthy, but not playing just because he wants to be as close to 100% as possible for these playoffs. I expect to see him at full go, but I do think if Bednar's smart, and he is, but I do think if he's got an eye to a long-term playoff run here, and the game goes well on Tuesday, I would expect to see them try to balance out the minutes a lot more than they have been for the defense group. So, So I don't think you're going to see a 30-minute night from Makar, but I do think you're going to see him at full speed doing Makar things.
Fair enough. I like that answer. I hope you're right about that, because I agree with you. I think early on, if you can afford to, with the matchup, insulate some of your defenders who are coming back from injuries, just in terms of ice time, maybe not in terms of opportunity or situational opportunity for that matter. You still want your best guys in the most important situation. But I will say I'm just a little bit concerned mainly about Manson, like you said, given the type of injury and his style. How ready is he for playoff hockey, at least in terms of skate shape? Like, is he in good enough shape to chase people around? You know, I look at the Avalanche D pairings, and I wonder if there is a potential for some tinkering if things maybe don't go as planned. Jackie, do you see is there an opportunity in your mind to do some tinkering with these pairings, or do you think they're pretty much set in stone?
Oh, I think that's the Avs MO, is to tinker, especially with everyone available.
Okay.
As we're assuming. Anyway, like even today they said that, like, other than Taze and Makar, like everybody was playing with everybody, which is kind of what I would expect. Like, you might see Manson on the quote-unquote second pair on paper, but we know that Byram and Girard are each going to get a lot of minutes, and they probably will each play more than Manson, which is which is what has happened in the playoffs in the past and in the regular season. So I think what's put on paper gets too much attention, and it's they're going to use everybody for sure.
It's about what's working, right? Basically, they're not gonna they're gonna tinker with it if they have to. And I feel like though with this group in particular, like I felt like Byram and Gerard sometimes struggled in a pair together. So I feel like if it gets to that, I might be a little bit concerned. But that might also have something to do with the fact that they're playing really well together. So I don't know. I that was just my perception and possibly just my opinion. Definitely just my opinion. But
I mean, we definitely see comments like that on the site.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, that's a pair that's together by necessity sometimes, and not a pair that stays together throughout the game, any game.
Right.
It for the most part, it's been a lot of Jack Johnson mixed in with the two of those guys lately, which has been surprisingly effective. Jack deserves a shout out all the time right now. He's playing great. But no idea if he's going to be in the lineup or Eric will be. But yeah, I stole time from somebody else to speak probably here, but but I just wanted to chime in and say that that's a pair that isn't necessarily ideal, but they get the job done. Sort of.
Yeah. You bring up a good question. You bring up a good question though, and I'm wondering this, and I'm wondering what other people think about this. Which of the Johnsons do you play?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you could do either or. Like, I think Jack Johnson could continue to fill in his role that he's, had last year in the Cup run and be that seventh defenseman. But I could also see him being the sixth defenseman, and then Eric Johnson doing that. But then again, I don't think Eric Johnson would want to do that, and I don't know. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, Jacob, you were on top of the Avalanche changing their mindset heading into like the Maple Leafs matchup, and that was a defensive focus type of thing. Do you think that is going to carry over into the playoffs? Because that's my prediction, is that the Avs are much more defensively oriented, even though they were already last year. In this playoffs, noticeably defensively oriented. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been my base case all year for the Avs. Is we're so obsessed talking about the offense, and for good reason, because they're the most exciting offensive team in the league when they're rolling. But this year, by necessity, because they weren't as deep as they were last year, they had to become a little bit more defensive and lean on that game, and they're really good at it. And so that in a lot of ways was kind of the identity of this year's team. I've pointed out that there's 5 or 6 teams I think that allowed fewer goals than the Avs this year, but there's like 12 or 13 that scored more than them. And so I do think that this is kind of primarily a defense. I don't want to go as far as to say it's a defensive identity when you have Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar running the show, but the way that they are training themselves to win hockey games essentially is a defensive first mindset, and the assumption is essentially if we take care of everything in our own zone on the back end, everything else will take care of itself going the other direction.
Yeah, I agree, and that seems to be Bednar's message. Even last year, it seems to be his focus and kind of the foundation. It's like the defense creates offense. That seems to be like his mantra, which I'm cool with.
I would say his main critique that you would hear about the Avs this year, when in games that they didn't play well, he'd always call out their checking and say we got to be better checking. We got to get closer.
Exactly. Well, that pretty much covers the Avs. But Ezra, tell me, you did the article. Is this Kraken D group like the Avalanche in that they contribute offensively, or is there more of a focus on limiting chances for them?
Well, they are like the Avalanche D-core in that they are driving play forward. They are definitely play drivers, except for their second pair, which is 2 big bruising defensemen. But their third pair is 2 guys who are moving the puck well. So if they mix and match the way the Avs do, which they have from time to time, and we see that second pair on paper not together as much, then they have the puck mover on every pair in the same way that the Avs like to. But the highlight for Seattle's D-core is Vince Dunn, who's emerged out of nowhere to be maybe in the Norris conversation. He won't win, finish top 3, but he put up 64 points, and that's in a season where there's not Erik Karlsson putting up 100. That's a pretty good total. for a defenseman. Yeah. So he's been quality, and his pair with Adam Larson is. I mean, their numbers are excellent. They lead the league in even strength ice time together, and they've outscored opponents on the ice together at even strength by 21 goals. So they made a pretty big difference for that team. They're a big reason that they're anywhere near the playoffs, let alone in them.
Yeah, I think it's easy for Avalanche fans to look at the Kraken and say, "Oh, they're just an inferior team. Look at where they finished in the standings. We're the Cup champs, yada yada." But it does feel like the overarching theme of them is that they're kind of made up of, in their defensive pairings, it's like good but not great, but better than just average all across the board, which I think, at least in their roles, which I think poses a threat for Colorado, just in that you kind of have to, the Avs have to be exactly who they are. Otherwise, they might run into trouble. If they play down, so to speak, which I'm basically saying the Kraken are good, but but if they play down for lack of a better term, they're going to have some issues. Jackie, is there a perceived advantage one way or another for you defensively?
I definitely would take the Avs defense. I'd pretty much take the Avs defense over everybody, any other team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say that probably is their overall competitive advantage.
Yeah, Brian.
And they've got to lean on that, I think.
Yeah, Brian says our defense is solid. That's right. Our defense, any defense with Cale Makar on it, right, probably has the advantage.
Definitely,
we've seen even without him, they're pretty solid.
Yeah,
exactly. Good, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I mentioned this to you. I know a few episodes back, but when you have this pretty much the exact same defensive core that won the Stanley Cup last year, you're going to be in pretty good terms.
Yeah.
So, it's defense wins championships, as cliche as that sounds. And the Avs proved it last year when you have, maybe a quote unquote mediocre goalie and an incredible defense that's going to take you far. So, I think they're going to do that, this time, and they have probably an even better goalie this time, which is actually probably a good segue. So I took
you nailed it. I was just about to say, speaking of goalies, and I could be mean, but I'm not gonna. I'll start with myself. Ado, does Philip Grubauer scare you? No, I'm sorry, but he doesn't. I will say the prospect of a former goalie playing us in a playoff series, that scares me. But I know Grubauer, at least I think I do. Maybe I'm wrong. But he's always, to me, felt like the kind of guy who's good enough. And I think for the first time in like 5 years since Semyon Varlamov, the Avalanche have a goalie that's more than just good enough. We have a goalie with the potential to steal games. And I think that might, in conjunction with the defensive focus, that might be the story of this year's Colorado Avalanche. We heard Bednar say they're going to have to find a way to do it differently, this year's team. And I think that's the way, is leaning on good goaltending, leaning on good defensive play. And so back to Philip Grubauer, maybe I'm just salty because of how he played in Game 6 against the Vegas Golden Knights, but that's just my perception. I feel like he can't necessarily be trusted when it's crunch time. Evan, what do you think of that? Am I being mean?
I don't know if I would say being mean. I think it's just being kind of an honest truth, because Grubauer was like that in the playoffs for the Avs, but to be fair, he was injured for part of the time, and everybody in that 2020 bubble was incredibly injured. So I think I definitely do agree with you that like the prospect of a former Avs goalie playing us in the playoffs is definitely a little scary. Somehow all the time, every time the Avs manage to get goalied, and exactly. I think Grubauer could do that. And so it's kind of like a two-edged knife. Like Grubauer knows where some of these guys are going to shoot. He's going to know where guys are going to be looking for passes, tracking passes, so on and so forth. But then the Avs forwards are also going to know, like, okay, what are Grubauer's weak spots, right? Yeah. Where are they going to aim in the net, right? So, it's a matter of like trying to find the in between there. Like, can the Avs, get at Grubauer's weaknesses, But can Grubauer, maybe learn from that because he knows, right? He's probably a huge influence in that Kraken locker room, considering he does have playoff experience, let alone against the team that the Kraken are playing in their first ever playoff appearance, right?
Right.
Burakovsky, I know, is going to be missing the first round, but he could be offering things too, like from afar. But it's not quite the same when you're not in the locker room playing like Grubauer will be. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of how he steps up and where he leads this Kraken team from the back, simply just because he was a former Av.
Right. And I'm speaking so confidently that it's almost entirely destiny that he gets a shutout at some point. But right now, he's sitting at he's sitting at a 2.85 goals against average and a save percentage that's sub 900 at 895. And he and Martin Jones are one of the only goalie tandems to both get like 30 some games, and they've their defense seems to insulate them the most. Like they've seen the fewest shots on goal out of any two tandems. Do you think that speaks to the fact that the Kraken know it about themselves that they kind of have lackluster goaltending? I'll give this one to you, Jackie.
From what I recall, I think Jones was doing well early on, and it was kind of surprising because he's definitely had an up and down career. And then I believe it's been more Grubauer lately, and also Jones had an injury. So I don't know if they prefer a tandem. I guess it just seems to be that's how it's worked out. Like one of them was kind of the guy for a while, and now it seems like it's swung back to Grubauer, which you'd probably want to go with, especially like
Money.
you said, his familiarity. But it could work both ways, because I do remember in the game the Avs beat the Kraken, it was in a shootout, and I remember McKinnon had the game-winning shot, and he did something that he never usually does. Like, he usually takes a shot, but it was that really like slick 5-hole shot, and it was kind of like, was he really thinking about Grubauer and how to beat him? Because McKinnon usually does what he wants, not necessarily goalie specific, and it seemed like in that moment he was really trying to use a little bit of strategy there. So maybe that's kind of what I'm looking for is the Avs have thought about like how to attack him a bit. But to answer your question, I don't know. I think they're going to roll with Grubauer. I guess we'll see. Like, are they more if things don't go their way early on, are they willing to like pull the plug and go with Jones? That could definitely be something to watch, because I'm not really sure what their inclination is at that point.
I mean, the Kraken they've been rolling with guys that are hot in net. I mean, that's why you mentioned Martin Jones, and then now obviously Grubauer. So, I think they're going to roll with Grubauer at least to start.
Hot seems like a strong word.
Well, okay. In good form. In good form. How about that?
Lukewarm.
I guess here's my takeaway, I guess, with the entire Kraken roster, I guess. Like they're well-rounded, they have their pieces, they have what works for them, right? But they're not at the point where they're like able to get over the hump, I feel like, in my opinion. I think the best comparison I can make is that they're the Avs of 2018. 2019. So I don't know. I think that's where I would rank them, at least for the time being. Like they've got what works for them, and they got them to a first ever playoff appearance. So whatever works in that department for them. So now it's just a matter of how they build off of that, right?
They kind of remind me of Nashville from last year in a way, because they also are riding some high shooting percentages. Their forward group's sort of similar. Like Nashville doesn't really have like a star. I mean, I guess you could argue maybe Philip Forsberg is better than anyone they have, but I think it's kind of similar. Just obviously Nashville has better goaltending. I just also find it interesting that a team that's only existed for 2 years has good depth. Isn't that kind of, I don't know, just something interesting to think about, because it seems like it's so hard to get is good depth. And it's like, yeah, obviously the expansion draft is part of it, but they also didn't really hit that one out of the park either.
Mm-mm.
And
I feel like that explains it kind of, because I feel like the approach from other teams when the expansion draft came around was the opposite of what it was when Vegas had theirs, because everybody learned, oh shit, somebody will actually just go take this contract on for no reason. It makes no sense whatsoever, but they're going to take it on and find the money or flip the asset. And so they protected people that were more of those high-end assets. And so I think some of those tweener depth guys were the ones exposed. I know obviously like the roster now and that roster look a lot different, but I still think that there's something to be said about the way those assets were flipped and how that plays into the depth that they currently have. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about like giving opportunity. Like you look at Sprong, like how on earth did they just randomly get this guy and he scored like 46 points?
Right.
It's
just
like
Carlson almost for the Knights, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting about like giving guys opportunity, right? And on paper weren't as good as they were able to do in this new environment. So
right.
I mean, I guess truly the hardest thing is to get stars, which they're going to have to deal with that. But it is crazy that a team can have such good depth just by giving opportunity to guys.
Yeah, and speaking of giving opportunities to people, Alexander Georgiev finally has an opportunity to be a playoff starting netminder. So, you know, Jacob, how do you feel about Georgiev heading into the first round? Are you excited? Are you nervous? What's the vibe?
I'm real excited for him. You know, he seems like he's got it. I would say like that. You know, that the Rangers game I think really kind of convinced me that that he has kind of that, you know, that dog in him to, you know, to for lack of a better term.
You sound like me, my generation.
Yeah,
good job.
I know, right?
Welcome to the club.
See the meme now. X-ray.
say, hey, how you doing, fellow kids?
Yeah. No cap.
Oh gosh.
But no, I think that he, you know, this is the opportunity he's waited his entire career for. This is this is the moment for him. And he has approached this year with such a gusto and, you know, just his style of play. He's so aggressive. He clearly trusts in, you know, himself in net. And I just think that we're going to see him go for it. He knows that he's been, you know, carrying a big load this year, and he's going to keep it up in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think that he has the potential, and I wrote in the script, and you guys probably all thought I was like a dad, but they're like, yeah, I said he has the potential to be the toast of the town, and I think that that's true. I think like if he steals a couple of series on a couple of games in big series, like he could be somebody who gets on that Mount Rushmore of retired jerseys if he puts together a couple more years after that, given this is the first year of his contract, right? So yeah. I'm excited to see him play. Yeah,
in 1 year, but yeah, I mean, I think you're not off base to say.
I know. Well, that's why I said if he follows up a cup run with a couple of good years, I think, you know, or a cup win goes a long way to getting your number in the rafters. Especially when you're. Go ahead.
We didn't have that same conversation about Kemper because we saw Kemper as a guy kind of like here for a moment.
Right.
And now we're seeing Georgiev as a guy who can continue to grow with the team.
Exactly.
And that's pretty exciting.
I guess, yeah, that's kind of what I'm pointing to is he's got that potential to be the face of at least that side of the franchise for a few years, including this one, which I think sets up nicely. Somebody who's kind of been the face, at least the most consistent face of the goalie group is Frankie Papa-Francouz. What is
that?
I know, right?
all the wrong pronunciation.
Yeah. Here, somebody, Francouz. There it is.
There you go.
That's one of those names, man. It's like, never mind. We'll move on. Anyway, how do you expect Evan, Martin Jones, or Frankie to play into this series, if at all?
I think, I mean, at least in Francouz's case, it's going to be he'll pop in whenever he needs to, right? Whenever he's called upon. He did that a whole bunch, you know, during the playoffs last year. It was huge. It was influential. Really, really underrated piece to that cup run that a lot of people overlook. So it's going to be the same here in this case. I mean, Georgiev is most definitely our starter. He is definitely going to be the one that uses his momentum and flows and ebbs and flows. I mean, to win games, right? I mean, even look at the Nashville game on Friday, right? That huge save that he made with 2 minutes to go, and then down the other end, McKinnon gets his hat trick goal to win the Central Division, right? Like that is clutch Alexander Georgiev. That is what he does. So, unfortunately for Francouz, he has to watch on the bench. As much of a shame as that is, because he is a really good goaltender, right? I mean, we've seen that. There might have been debate where it could have been like a 1A, 1B scenario all year, but it wasn't. And, you also have to look into Francouz's injuries that he dealt with this year, just like everybody else. And, he's just not at the same caliber as Georgiev is. So, I mean, he's only going to come in whenever he's called upon, really. Might go for Martin Jones also. I mean, kind of like I mentioned earlier, they're gonna go with whoever is the most lukewarm goalie, as Ezra said. And maybe if Grubauer struggles in his first 2 games, right, against the Avs, then maybe they'll go back to Seattle and they'll try Martin Jones in game 3. You never know.
Yeah,
so it's just
how I feel.
It's a matter of whatever Dave Haxtell wants to do with that. But I think for now it's just going to be Grubauer, and so yeah.
The sooner we see Martin Jones, the better, in my mind, because that means Grubauer just got ran through. And so,
and the Avs have gotten the best of Martin Jones too in the past, right? If I'm not mistaken. So, of course, that was with his time in San Jose, and San Jose's kind of not plateaued, fallen off a cliff the last few years. So,
they need him back. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So both of them are going to enjoy their time on the bench, I'm sure, but. That's what I got.
I think it goes a long way for a guy like Georgiev to know that you have Frankie backing you up in the event that it's not really going your way. Frankie can step in, not be much of a drop off, and give you just another day. Just clean your hands, move on, whatever. But same is true for the Avalanche. If we see Frankie and Georgiev is healthy, that means something bad has happened in the first couple of games. So I hope that doesn't happen. And speaking of bad things happening, I sent out our live poll this week, and if you don't already follow us on Twitter, please head over there, because we do a lot of fun stuff that contributes to our content. You can follow us at MHH_lab, and you can follow the entire site at Mile High Hockey. But this week's poll is kind of centered around what we might be concerned of heading into this first round matchup with the Kraken. So I gave 3 options, and then I gave a 4th for people to write in. Are we concerned about Grubauer going off and goaling the Avs, basically? Are we concerned about the Avs being too thin in terms of their depth? And are we worried about losing leadership and how they might handle momentum swings? Who wants this one? I'll start with you, Jacob. What's your answer to this poll, and why?
So my answer is, I'm not really scared of any one thing. It's more a combination of multiple things. And so, like, one scenario that scares me is, Larson and Dunn play out of their minds, play Makar and Taze to something resembling a draw. We get a couple good Grubauer games, and then, Matty Beniers elevates a couple levels and steals a game or 2, and all of a sudden the Avs find themselves in a game 6. I don't think that Seattle is close enough to the Avs where you can point to any one factor saying, like, this could be what pushes Seattle over the series. I think it's going to take multiple things for this to go right for Seattle.
Yeah, and just to give you a hint on what the results are so far, 143 voters have voted of 53% of the Avs being too thin. Evan, it seems like now that we've seen the dust settle on the Landeskog injury saga, people are concerned that the Avalanche didn't utilize kind of the LTIR the way that the Golden Knights did as of today. What do you think about that? Do you think the Avs are thin, or are you not concerned?
Okay, let me address the Landeskog LTIR trade deadline thing, because it has been all over the comments. It's been all over Twitter.
It's so stupid.
The Avs, they could, yes, they had $7 million in LTIR because Landeskog was out. Correct. Yes, that's $7 million extra dollars that they could have used to get somebody, but there were no assets to get people.
Yeah,
there were no assets,
and there were no people to get.
And there were no people to get either. Exactly.
They only got Timo Meyer, but like we can look at the trade and we can see what assets were given up for him, and the Avs literally didn't have those assets. And so like that's it. That's the one guy they couldn't have made the trade that it required to get him.
Yep, exactly. And I don't think people understand that. They just see a big number and they see, oh, that big number wasn't used.
Yeah.
So
well, it's safe to say they tried, probably, right? They probably just couldn't bring anything to the table that competed with the other offers that teams were able to put up based on the fact that the Avs just didn't have assets.
Exactly.
So you think
we could go down this rabbit hole back again.
No,
like
I
for the trade deadline. So
yeah,
to go back to the poll and how that relates to that.
That's pretty much what people are getting at, right? Is that we didn't make a move at the deadline, and so the Avs don't have that depth.
And that's
an insult to Lars Eller.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too.
He's been so good.
You cannot replace Gabriel Landeskog. You cannot replace his captaincy. You can't replace his presence in front of the net. You can't replicate his scoring, his presence in the locker room. You name it. You can't replace that. Simply put, unless you went out and got some other team's captain, but that wasn't going to happen. So I'm not worried about that part. I'm not worried about that part at all. I'm more worried about. I wrote other, because it's kind of related to the Avs being thin, but I wouldn't call the Avs thin. I would just say that I'm worried more about Seattle's depth and like, shush.
I'm worried about Seattle's depth too, bro. No, I hear you.
I'm more, I'd be more worried about their depth and like seeing how that lines up with the Avs' depth, pretty much. Like I'm not too worried about the Avs, looking like December Avs where you have Jean-Luc Foudy in the lineup, right? Yeah. I'm not worried about that part. I'm more worried about, will Seattle scoring, from that fourth line with Daniel Sprong or Eli Tolvanen, right? Like how will that depth affect the Avs and like, like an Andrew Cogliano or a Darren Helm, right? Or a Dennis Mulligan. How are they going to match up? How are they going to battle? So that's what I'm more focused on, I guess, and more worried about, rather than the Avs just being, I guess, thin as a whole and missing out on leadership. Because Landeskog is still going to be there. He's still going to be there in the locker room and, with the team, traveling with the team. He's already said that he's going to be around the team as much as he can. He was there this morning at practice. So, it's not like he's gone, right? He'll still be there. It'll just be in a different, it'll just be there in a different aspect.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, though, that like the thing about playoff hockey is momentum swings. There's a lot of very harsh momentum swings, and it takes resolve to stay composed inside of those momentum swings, and it takes resolve to stick to the plan. And I think that's what the Avalanche did better last year than they ever have, and that's kind of what culminated into their success. Jackie, Evan mentions he's more concerned about the depth. Are you at all concerned about the way this Avalanche team will handle momentum swings, or is there enough of last year's squad and last year's experience ingrained in them for them to be just fine in that regard?
Okay, I have a couple answers for this.
Okay.
To answer your question specifically, one thing I'm really looking for is what adjustments they do make when they face adversity. Like last year, they didn't have to do it really at all. Like they lost 4 games and they were never down in a series. They were never in an elimination game, game 7. And I feel like one thing that they did against Vegas was like Bednar's very much this is what he thinks his best hand is, and he's playing it. And obviously that approach won them a cup. But I'm really interested to see, like, if the chips really are down, what kind of adjustments he makes. Because he, like I said, he tends to just kind of roll with what he thinks is best. And I think he did leave a little bit on the table in that Vegas series. So I'm just really curious to see if they've learned a little bit from that moment. And it's tough because you don't want them to just completely panic and do things that are completely out of their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But it's a fine line. So that's one thing I'm really interested to see what they do when they face true adversity. But to answer the poll, I would say my biggest concern is injuries. Like, I think that is going to be probably the story of this team. Either they win it all or when they get knocked out. Unfortunately, I feel like it's how healthy can they stay, because we can make the argument the depth is okay, but they have a lot thinner margin for error, I think. And so I think that's going to be a huge factor. But I guess just in general of the series with Seattle, like just scoring, because they were all low scoring games, all 1-goal games. Seattle won 2 of them. You just want to see them consistently be able to put the puck in the net.
Mm-hmm.
If they can do that, I think they'll be fine. I do expect the games to be competitive, but like they have the stars. If they're getting goals, I don't think Rantanen scored a single goal against Seattle, which is amazing.
Oh,
He
wow.
scored 55.
Wow, yeah, it is. Wow.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
So, yeah, it was interesting that they got goals from like Newhook and Mulligan and Byram, and so they didn't really have the stars really scoring in this series. So I think if that can occur, they'll be fine. So I
Okay.
guess from a game perspective, that's what I'm looking at the most for this series.
Yeah, this should be the year that McKinnon wins the Conn Smythe for just having an absolutely dominant playoff, based on his trajectory, right? Because he finally got the monkey off his back, finally did shit, as he put it, and now I feel like he's more free. I think you even saw it in his success in a shortened regular season. I mean, guy got 42. Was it 42 at the end of the hat trick? 42 goals in 71,
I think so.
Yeah, that
71
sounds right.
games, 100 plus points in 71 games. I mean, if he did play 82, I wonder what those numbers would have looked like in the eyes of the rest of the NHL world. But Ezra, I just want to land on you. What was your answer to this poll and why?
Yeah, I also said other with injuries in mind. I think it especially with how things have gone for the team this year. Obviously, injuries are a big factor. I'm thinking specifically about guys like Manson and Cogliano and Helm, who we've seen consistently get dinged up, and Cogliano's playing through it, obviously, but Helm and Manson have been in and out of the lineup. So, we'll see what happens there. I want to talk about the Avs being too thin and the concerns about the depth a little bit more. I know we've kind of beat it to a pulp here, but I think what's important to think about is like the Avalanche bottom 6 is designed to be defensive stoppers for other teams' top 6s.
Yeah.
If they can't stop the Kraken's bottom 6, that's terrible. I think they'll probably get outscored bottom 6 versus bottom 6, but by like a goal or two. It's not going to be a big issue. I really believe that, because they're built to defend great offense, and so they can defend mediocre offense.
Yeah,
it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. Like, if you can't do that, you're in trouble, right? And that's where that's going to be the story of the series. So I'm with you there. I agree with, I think, all of you that overarching, like a lot of the comments were nothing. I don't have one. No concern.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. And it's a good mantra to have too, because I mean, I know I brought it up last year in our roundtable before the playoffs. I think the Avs had lost 6 games or something going into the playoffs because they were just resting guys. And I was like, I'm worried about how they're going to come out, and they put up 5 on Nashville in the first period. So, they can flip the switch just like that. So I'm expecting something similar tomorrow night, that they're going to flip a switch, and especially when they're coming in with their healthiest lineup probably of the year, that's going to be a good thing. And I mean, Darren Helm especially, I'm happy to see that, because
that was the one that really
week.
surprised me.
Mm-hmm. I know I said that last week, where I was like, "Ooh, I don't know," but here we are. So he may play tomorrow. Who knows? I have no idea.
I think
McFarland
said he wouldn't play game 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh no.
We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know. Bednar's up to his antics of like, I'm not telling anybody.
Yeah. he wouldn't confirm Makar, and Makar was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in."
Makar confirmed himself. Like that. That was
exactly.
funny. That's how you know the playoffs have started. We're right.
Wait, what did Coach say before I answer? Yeah. That's funny. So I want to open the floor now before we're zooming through this episode, even though we're doing a little bit of a longer form today. But I wanted to open the floor up, but I want to give it to you, Jackie, first, because you dished out the round table, right? So you could just steal one of those questions from the round table, your favorite one from this week's round table ahead of the matchup. And if you haven't read it, head on over to milehighhockey.com. Once again, we have all of your playoff preview necessities. So, Jackie, what was your favorite question from the roundtable you sent to our panel of writers?
I think the last question. I think it's important to discuss how far they need to get. And I know I use the word unacceptable if they don't repeat. And I can see that probably nobody feels that way, knowing that it is very difficult to repeat and everything. But, there's also sort of a perception that you got to believe they can go all the way, too. And it's very hard to predict them to not go all the way. So I think it is an important discussion to say, like, how far does this team really need to get? Like, what is it all just gravy from here on out because they won once? I don't think so. I think we all want like a dynasty and something really truly special from this group. But, so that's kind of what I want to ask everybody. Like, where are you at with truly what do you need to see from this team to conclude this season?
Yeah, let's go, Evan. You take that.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in the article, and I'll say it again here. I mean, the heart wants a repeat or bust, right? But the head up here is thinking injuries, right? Because that's just been the norm of the season, and also trying to stop Connor frickin' McDavid. So, they did it last year, of course, in the Western Conference Final, and I think the two are going to meet again in the Western Conference Final. But if they meet in the Western Conference Final, there's absolutely no way the Avs are going to sweep them this time. There's no way. There's no Mike Smith in goal this time around. And so
he's a rookie, though.
Yeah.
So, so my head says Western Conference Final, like getting back to that point. And then, anything after that, I think is a treat. Getting back to the final and, of course, winning it. So, that's where I'm at with that question. And, obviously I hope my head is wrong and my heart is right. Trust my gut, right?
Well, yeah, I didn't actually have time to participate in the roundtable, so it's a good opportunity right now for me to answer that question from my point of view. I would say that the Avalanche, I think if they make it to the Stanley Cup, it'll be quite a feat. And I bet you that's their goal, because once you're there, just win it, right? But I think like getting there is probably the goal in my mind, because if you get there and you do it with all of the adversity you faced, it says a lot about a lot of things, the coaching staff and their communication with the players. It says a lot about the character inside of the organization from top to bottom. So I think that for me is the marker, the I guess the barometer. Ezra, what do you think? What's your answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like obviously a repeat is the dream. It's what we all want. I think though, like giving yourself the opportunity to repeat is the most important thing to me. And that doesn't necessarily mean making the final, but it does mean not making mistakes to lose. You know what I mean? Like if another team beats you, okay,
hats off.
That happens. That's hockey. But if you beat yourself, then that's going to be a disappointing end of the year. So I didn't really put that in the article, but that is my true opinion. I kind of make more of a joke out of my answer in the article. But,
the comedian making a joke?
Yo,
hey, I'm being sincere now. My opinion is if they lose to the Kraken, that's going to be really disappointing. If they lose in the second round, that's maybe defensible if it's a really great series. But if they make the Western Conference Final and they can't quite pull it out, that makes sense. They're missing they're missing a key player in Gabe Landeskog and probably somebody else by that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, now I'm reading what you wrote, and you said, "But if we don't win the cup again, I'm quitting to start a Kraken blog." Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Jacob, what do you think?
Said, go visit Davy Jones's locker room.
Yeah,
They're
Davy Jones is greatly like the names, the branding around all things Kraken has been absolutely out of this world. So, I mean, did you guys see the graphic that their team put out that said like Sea to Summit, and it looked like
Yeah,
an old
that was
Sea
really
Journal.
cool.
Super cool. Like
Oh, wow.
good on that organization.
Good on
to
them.
do-
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're making the most of their run. They're making the most of it,
Exactly.
and I don't
It's-
blame them one bit. So
That's
I only
exactly.
have 2 jerseys. One's an Avalanche, one's a Kraken.
Oh, really?
I'm-
Interesting.
And maybe it wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
I-
Maybe it wasn't.
when I was this is a personal story, sorry, but I was a writer for a magazine in Seattle when they were
Oh,
like,
nice.
"Hey, we're gonna get a team," and then I was like, "Okay, great." When they come, that's what I'll do. And then they didn't come, and then they didn't come, and then they didn't come, and I was like, "Okay, I'm moving," and I moved. to
Oh,
LA.
God.
he stole you.
Uh-huh. That's
So,
well.
yeah,
So
but
what
I've been
you're
an
saying
Avalanche
is
fan since I
we
was a
could have
kid.
been bringing you on as a guest today, and instead,
An alternate universe, yeah,
Yeah,
where, the,
exactly.
where the Seattle got their team in 2015 instead of 2018.
yeah. Well, I'll send it over to Jacob. Jacob, what's your answer? Are you what's the what does success look like for the Colorado Avalanche in this postseason?
I think we're all on the same page that like, the Western Conference Final, I think, is kind of the bare minimum. You know, if they lose to Seattle, you know, like Ezra said, the only way that happens is you beat yourself in that round. Like for Seattle to outplay the Avs, like Matty Beniers would have to turn to Connor McDavid overnight. Like the amount of things that would have to go right for that team for them to outplay them. You know, the Avs have no business losing that series if they play their best. And Dallas is tough, Minnesota's tough. Either of those teams are good, but like. Especially Dallas, they had everything go right for them. I think they had like 3 man games lost to injury on their defense all year long. Like they were one of the healthiest teams in the entire NHL. They couldn't have asked for more this season. They finished a point behind the Avs, who had everything go wrong for them. And so like, I respect them. First off, you have to, as an Avs fan, you have to respect any team that has Joe Pavelski on it because he's going to kill you in the playoffs. Like, yeah, that guy's good for at least 1 goal a game against you in the playoffs. And you respect the way that they play. They've been there. They've got postseason experience. But again, if both teams are playing their best, it's hard for me to see how the Avs would lose to either Dallas or Minnesota. And so then you go to, okay, if both teams play their best in the Western Conference Final, Edmonton, yeah, absolutely. And Vegas, they're still the boogeyman at this point. That's the one, team on the revenge tour. The Avs haven't kicked off yet. And so I think that, losing to either of those 2 teams in the Western Final is acceptable. If it was like Los Angeles or something, then no, like that's also catastrophic.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they lose to Vegas or Edmonton in the Western Final, I can be at peace. Anything else, I'm going to be a wreck all off season.
Same. Yep. That's exactly it right there. I'll open it up. Is there something that we haven't touched on that one of you wants to mention or see what we all have to say?
What if we just go through general playoff predictions, like rapid fire? Just go through the rounds.
Do it. I like it. I like that a lot.
I'll think about my bracket that I made in like the 5 leagues that I'm in. Which, side note, because I saw you put it on the Twitter, Adrian.
Yeah.
Join the Mile High Hockey Lab bracket challenge.
Yeah, we made our own bracket. So
I gotta do that.
Yeah, so people can join. So let's just do that. I'm down. We'll start with Avs and Kraken, and we'll start with you, Jackie. Who wins and how many games?
Definitely got to pick the Avs here. I think 5, and I was more conservative
5, okay.
last year.
That's the
so
question.
If they don't do it, not good. But I don't mean to jinx them. But Avs in 5.
Okay, Dallas and Minnesota.
Oh, so we're gonna go through the whole thing. You just want to answer.
We're rolling.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think.
Okay.
What did I pick?
Give everybody time.
Yeah, sorry. We're gonna go with an upset. Minnesota in 7. I think that one's going long.
So it'll be Avs Wild in round 2.
Yeah.
Yikes. I would not like to play Ryan Reeves in the playoffs just because he's such a goon.
Gosh, why'd you remind me of that?
He doesn't even play.
I know, but then you hear the people like McDermott's got to be on the ice, and then I'm gonna really lose my mind.
No.
Okay, Jackie, Vegas and Winnipeg.
Vegas for sure.
Okay.
5, maybe 4.
Okay. And then Edmonton and LA.
I don't like Edmonton as much as everyone else.
Interesting.
I'm picking LA. Screw the Oilers.
Ooh, I like that.
LA in 6.
Okay. Bruins and Panthers in the East.
Bruins in 4.
Even though Patrice Bergeron is sick today.
The yearly meme. Maple Leafs or Lightning.
I think the Leafs will finally actually win in 6. If they get to Game 7, they're done. But Leafs in 6.
Okay, and Hurricanes and Islanders.
Hurricanes in the Islanders are so annoying. I'll say 5 though.
Annoying in what way? In that they can't.
I just wish they didn't exist.
Damn.
I hate the Islanders.
Off the top rope. That's great. Oh, that's so good. I just wish they didn't exist. Yeah. That's how I feel about my credit card debt. Anyway, the Devils and Rangers, Jackie. Last one.
I'll say Rangers in 7. I really like how the Devils are trending, but young teams just don't go on a run. They gotta get a little playoff adversity under their belts. I think I can go far, so that's why I say fair. Rangers in 7.
That's fair. Yeah, I feel like the Rangers are where the Devils will be in a couple of years.
Yeah.
I agree with you. All right, Ezra, you're up. Kraken or Avalanche?
Avalanche.
Whoa.
Get out of here.
Blog. And the newest member of Davy Jones's Locker. Okay.
No, that's Avalanche in 6 for me, for sure.
Okay. Dallas and Wild?
Dallas in 5.
Okay. Like that. Jets and Knights?
Vegas in 5.
Okay. Nothing too surprising here. Oilers in LA?
Kings in 7.
That's a little surprising.
Yeah.
Wow. Two people that have picked the Kings.
Just to defend the choice, and I think Jackie's probably on the same page as me. The Kings have defensive center depth to just they can shut down whoever's out there for Edmonton all night. I think they're going to be.
That's a good one. There's some money to be made there if that's true.
I'm not a gambler, but I wish I was.
I know, right? Yeah. I love that. Okay, Bruins and Panthers. Who you got?
I'm gonna go Bruins in 4. 5. I'm gonna go 5.
You can give 5. Panthers one of them. Okay, yeah. Leafs and Lightning.
Leafs in 6.
Okay.
I think it happens this year. Lightning are toasting.
That seems to be the general thesis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. Hurricanes and Islanders. Do you feel like the Islanders
could? In 6.
Oh, so you're cool with them existing?
I don't mind them existing. I don't really. I'd be fine if they didn't, but I don't.
It was so nice last year when they didn't hang around like they did the previous years, get into the 3rd round. It's this just makes the playoffs worse.
Yeah,
having to watch this team.
I like them a little more. They're a little more fun this year, but I completely agree.
Yeah, they're like watching paint dry. I agree. So last one, Rangers and Devils.
This one's so hard to pick because if the Devils had any more reliable goaltending than Vitek Vanacek, who's been great this year, but I just can't trust him, I would pick them. But I'm going to go Rangers in 6.
Cool. All right, so that's Ezra. Jacob, your turn. Avs and Kraken.
Avs in 4.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. I feel that too. Wild and Stars.
I think the Stars win fairly easily. I say Stars in 5.
Okay. So that we're going to start the second round when the first round and the other games are still rolling. I'm just kidding. Vegas and Jets.
I think Vegas is going to have some trouble with the Jets. I'll say Vegas in 6. I think Hellebuck steals at least a game.
Cool. I agree. That Hellebuck, that's what I said a couple episodes ago. It's if I had the choice between playing the Kraken or the Jets, I think the Kraken might be a more well-rounded team, but just in terms of their goaltending, I'd rather play the Kraken because Hellebuck.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, Oilers and Kings.
I agree with Jackie and Ezra that the Oilers are going to have some trouble with the Kings, but I think they squeak it out. I'll say Oilers in 7.
Oh, so this is going to be – it sounded like it's going to be the second closest series maybe other than the Rangers and Devils in most people's eyes. Bruins and Panthers.
I think the Panthers will pick a game off. I'll go Bruins in 5.
Okay. Leafs and Lightning.
The Leafs are cursed, man. Lightning in 7. That's it's got to be
if they get to 7, like I said.
Yeah, I agree with
7.
You. I would think the Leafs would prefer to play that on the road. I don't know if they want to be in Toronto for that, man.
Yeah, because if you're down 2 goals in Game 7 at home, that might be rough. Carolina and Islanders.
This I think is an upset. I think Sorokin steals this. I think Islanders in 7.
Nice.
Ooh.
And Devils and Rangers.
I agree with Jackie. I think Rangers are a little too seasoned at this point, and Devils are a few years behind them. So Rangers in 6, we'll say. It'll be a feisty series.
Nice. I like it. So we're pretty much all in agreement so far, right? Other than the Oilers, you said they'll have trouble, but they'll pull it off still.
Yeah.
So Evan, last but not least, Avs and Kraken.
This is not going to be a sweep this time around. Seattle's too good to not get swept. They're going to take a couple games. Avs in 6.
This is being recorded. I hope you know that.
I know. I'll happily eat my words if that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. Like every single series last year, I was like, "Oh, I was in 6 or 7," so it's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's okay for them to prove you wrong.
Exactly. Dallas or Minnesota?
Kirill Kaprizov is single-handedly going to take the Wild to Game 7, but Dallas is going to win Game 7.
See that? Jets and Knights.
Knights in 5. I mean, Hellebuck can only do so much.
Fair enough. Oilers and Kings. The hot ticket.
Pretty much retweet what Jacob said. Oilers in 7. It's going to be exactly the same as it was last year.
Bruins and Panthers.
Bruins in 4. Get out of here, Florida.
Get out of here.
That's a team I forget exists sometimes. If we're going down the Isles route.
Yeah. Leafs and Lightning.
Again, retweet what Jacob said. Until they prove me wrong, otherwise
you're going with the
Tampa's gonna beat them in 7 games.
That's fair.
Until they prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And every year, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different.
I agree.
Stop with that BS.
Yeah. All right. Carolina and Islanders.
See, I want to go with the Isles just because Svechnikov is out, and that's a big loss for Carolina, but Carolina is still going to pull through. I think they're going to win in 6.
Okay. And last but not least, Rangers and Devils.
Yeah, pretty much same as everybody else. I wish the Devils were a little bit more seasoned, so I'm going to say Rangers win it on home ice in Game 6.
Yeah, I agree with all of you on most of them. I think I'm with you all with the LA giving the Oilers a tough time. I do think that they will upset them, and I also think that the Devils are going to upset the Rangers. And I think so because I feel like the addition of Patty Kane hasn't done good. I think it's going to hurt them more than it helps them because he's going to be given opportunities that I just feel like I don't know. This is being recorded, Adrian. He's probably going to come and have the first goal for the Rangers, and they're going to sweep the Devils. But I really do feel like they gave him the keys to the Lamborghini, and he doesn't know how to drive standard anymore. So that's just my thought on. And I feel like the Devils are the opposite. I feel like they're further along than we thought they would ever be, and they have some young guys that don't seem to shy away from the big game moments. That's like where I feel like they're different than the Leafs in that, like, when the stuff really hits the fan, I feel like the Devils just have nothing to lose. So they'll be able to kind of step into that. Maybe I'm crazy. Probably am. Speaking of craziness, and check this out, guys. It's time for our favorite segment. It's all about
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So, last week we had some bold predictions. I got to partake because it was just the three of us, Evan and Jackie and I. Evan, you predicted last week that Rodriguez would have a 3-game point streak. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was
How'd
close.
that go?
I was close, but it didn't quite work out.
Not quite what you wanted there, but he did all right.
He did get points on the board, and that's at least what I wanted. That was more of a challenge, I guess, but
yeah,
you passed.
Yeah,
I don't remember what mine was. So
I wrote it
down.
down.
Not good.
It wasn't, but I will say it wasn't in like the most, like, I don't know, it was boring. You had Mac and Rantanen to double up Draisaitl and McDavid,
right.
And the opposite was true, but it was because they each had a point. So it was kind of just like not the night.
It was a wash. Yeah, that's right.
It was not really the night of the marquee matchup like I thought it would be. And then last but not least was me. I had the Oilers to win the West and the Avalanche to win the Central. Half of that happened, the good half. But I'm still wrong as wrong could be. So now let's do some bold predictions playoff style, which is something we've never done. I will start with you, Jacob. What's your bold prediction?
I think they ruined the biggest party in Seattle on Saturday night and win that game, that first playoff game in Seattle in Game 3. And I think that they do it in a way that kind of smothers and shuts up the crowd. 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, something kind of a low wattage defensive game like that to try to take the crowd out of it.
Okay, so what do we put that? How about I put that as like the Avs cover maybe like three goals?
Yeah, say under 5 total goals in that game. Yeah, 3-1.
Under 5 total, at least 3-1. All right, I like that. I agree. Be a good statement to make right there. Let's go with you, Evan.
Man, I've not been able to think this much about it, but I'll go with come back to me.
Okay.
Come back to me.
I wish I had the Jeopardy clock right there. Ezra, what about you?
Okay. I've been trying to figure out how to word this thought.
Okay.
But it is that the first goal by a bottom 6 player for either team will come from the Avalanche fourth line, the Cogliano, O'Connor, whoever mix.
That makes sense. So I got the first goal to come from either bottom 6 will come from the Avs fourth line.
Yeah.
Perfect. I like that one. I like that one a lot. That would prove vital to winning the series as well. Yeah. Maybe not just the
this
one.
Is more
goal.
Of a hope. This is more of a hope.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Jackie, your turn.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I think in each of the 4 series last year, there was an overtime game. There usually is. But I will say 2 out of the first 3 games the Avs play against the Kraken will go to overtime.
Wow.
Ooh.
It's tomorrow night. I'm going to lose my crap. My heart's going to be running tomorrow night.
Oh, man. I don't think I've ever been more nervous in public than I was when Andre Burakovsky scored the game-winning goal in overtime against. I was like pinned, like you could. It was palpable how much stress was in the environment, and similar to when Manson scored his overtime winning goal. It was like, especially because Bennington just kept making saves, and you were like, "Oh God!" Yeah. So I like that, Jackie. That would make for some must-see TV too. I just hope, if that's true, Avs still win all 3 of those games.
Yeah, I think it's a huge. You talked about momentum earlier. That's like a huge momentum.
Yeah.
Giver,
builder,
I guess you could say, is to win overtime games. Like to win a series, it almost feels like you have to win one in overtime, and then it really propels.
Yep. All right, Evan, we gave you the time.
Yep, I got one. It actually might help with Ezra's prediction too. Okay. But Eric Johnson scores his first goal of the season.
That's a good. I like that one. That's a really good one.
EJ.
Yeah. EJ scores
because he hadn't scored. It still hasn't scored this year.
Nope.
Wow.
So I mean that's another part of the leadership thing. EJ is one of those guys, right? Mm-hmm. And I could see him stepping up and doing that, and that would probably help Ezra's chances too. Even if EJ gets a shot off and it's deflected by O'Connor down low or something like that.
I feel like he had a really good look against Nashville, and I was like, oh, is this it? Like
he did.
Like, did he just get it? And then it was.
He got it. And I think not Kankinen. Lankinen stopped it. Kevin Lankinen. That's a mouthful. But yes, EJ to score sometime this week. I can see that happening.
I like that bold prediction. It's a good one.
Yeah. My bold prediction is that the Avs will score within the first 2 minutes of Game 1.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
blow the roof off that place.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm like we've all ended our bold predictions with. It's kind of a hope. Maybe we should turn this into bold hoping.
I guess I kind of wanted to go back to the bracket challenge or whatever. Just what everyone's cup champion pick is.
Good. I like that. Or how about this cup matchup and champion? Let's do that.
Okay.
That way we get the other side of the bracket. So you go first. Who's in the game and who's your cup champion, Jackie?
I'm actually picking Carolina this year. I think they've been a consistent good team, but they never get chosen to go all the way. And I think they've also had the second round kind of difficulties, but the Avs made it through. Washington was out in the second round several times. So Carolina against who in the West?
Wonder
if the Avs get that far, I think they win. So I can't really pick the Avs as the opponent.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna say Vegas. Carolina against Vegas.
Evan did not like that.
Yeah.
Go Carolina if that's the case.
Yeah, that'd
Sorry,
be the biggest
Jackie.
hurricane.
I didn't mean to
know.
rain on your parade.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
That's the reaction we want. Evan. That's what
But
we want.
this is a true bold predictions if any of us get the cup matchup right.
Right.
That's true.
That's a good point. All right, then Ezra, your two cup finalists and who wins?
Well, I just went through and did my bracket while we were talking.
Efficient.
And I ended up with, on the West, Colorado.
Okay.
Beating Seattle, Dallas, and Vegas. And in the East, the New York Rangers.
The Rangers.
Okay.
Which I don't really believe, but that's
You're
what
laughing
happened,
at
'cause
yourself.
I was like,
I thought you were going with Toronto for a second, and I was going to say Ezra, buddy.
I mean, yeah. No, I've watched hockey for a lot of years. I know what's real. But I did give Toronto one win, but and then in the final I was like, well, the Avs can't repeat without Landeskog without injuries, right? I can't pick them, can I? I should. I don't know. I'm having a hard time. I think I'm going to pick the Rangers.
Okay, fair enough. I will say,
But I like what Jackie said. If the Avs get there, they should win.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And now it won't let me change, so I guess I'm.
You're locked in now.
It really won't. I'm like clicking it. I tried to change it before I had to say.
What time is it? It's 4:48. Maybe they locked us down.
No,
'cause
no,
I
no,
think-
no. They
They lock
don't. They
in
don't.
2 days.
Yeah, they lock in 2 days. They got plenty of time.
So I don't know why it won't let me change it.
You signed the contract. You made your bed and you're laying in it now.
Has getting back to what you mentioned about Landeskog and how can they even do it without him? I wonder if has there ever been an instance where like someone gets a commemorative C, so to speak? Like, would Landeskog ever give McKinnon the C for a series? Is that a
I was
thing?
thinking about this. Like, if they do win, who picks up the cup? And it's
Right.
McKinnon.
That's my question. Like, if they get to the
McKinnon.
final, somebody, or is there just going to be 3 A's?
I think it's
I think it'll be
3.
3 A's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's so symbolic that you just don't really like give captaincy. I just don't think they would unless Landy was like truly like retired, not coming back, and even then they might wait.
Yeah.
But a good question, definitely. If we get to that point, like who gets the cup first? I think Georgiev
Love the
should
question.
get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
figured out how to change
probably
it.
will give it to one of the A's, probably McKinnon. But you would think like with the role that he would play and that he hasn't won it, it should definitely go to Georgiev.
Yeah. Well, I'll give
Imagining
you
him in his big goalie gear, just like
super cool.
come on out.
That
That'd be
dope
kind of
ass
fun.
hair he's got,
That would be kind of fun.
wet and wiling in the wind with a cup. Yeah, that'd be an epic view. My final isn't all that controversial, but like what leads up to it, I feel like in my bracket is like I have the Devils going deep. I have them losing in the East to the Bruins, and then I have the Avs losing to beating Vegas in the Western Conference Final, and then I have the Avs beating Boston in 7. So that's me, and I
Pretty
think
big.
it happens because I think this will be the year that McKinnon gets his name called before anybody gets to touch the puck and goes and snags that Conn Smythe. That's my prediction. Evan, what's yours?
Yeah, mine's not very exciting either. I've got who do I have going deep? I'm trying to remember. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, I have Avs and Oilers in the Western Conference Final, and then Bruins, Rangers in the East. I have Boston and Edmonton coming out on top of the West and East, and I have Boston winning. They just seem so unstoppable. Even if Patrice Bergeron is out sick, but no, they just seem unstoppable. And I was looking back. The last time the President's Trophy winner won the Stanley Cup was 10 years ago in 2013 with Chicago. So Maybe it's a 10-year thing. Who knows?
Yeah, every 10 years, like on The Godfather, right? Jacob, what's your Stanley Cup final? Why do I keep making that noise today?
Mine's boring too. I'm same as Evan. I think it's going to be Colorado Boston, which I really hate because all of my friends in Boston are going to be really annoying.
Boston.
I mean, I really hope I'm wrong. Like I would bet money. I would lose money just so I could be wrong on this. But I do think that Colorado and Edmonton are on a collision course. You know, my base case is that Toronto is cursed, and so they're, it's going to be, I think, an easier second round matchup with a kind of a less deep Tampa Bay team for Boston. And then I think they probably match up against the Rangers, and I think they take that series. The one thing about Boston that I do think makes them a little bit vulnerable is that all their scoring comes from Pastrnak. There's no team that is more dependent on one player to score goals than Boston is with Pastrnak, and so a lot easier said than done. Oh, just shut down David Pastrnak, don't let him score, and you could beat Boston. But if you do that, you can beat Boston, and so the Avs have been to the mountaintop before, and I agree. I think that if they get to the final, I think they do win it.
Yeah, that's my take too. Then that's why I say that's the goal. Get there, and then all bets are off, right? So it's more like the road to 12 this year, because then the last 4, you just push all your chips into the middle and let it fly. So I agree with that. I do think that the Bruins remind me of the Avs when the Avs lost to the Golden Knights. And my explanation for that is I know that Ullmark has been great statistically, but I feel like structurally the Bruins are really good. And sometimes that can kind of come and go in the heat of momentum swings of playoff hockey. You see a little bit more open ice. I don't know if that's the case, but I just feel like Ullmark is great, but he's not as great as his numbers indicate. And so I think that we'll see that come to life against some of the more competitive and skilled teams later in the rounds for the Bruins. So that's one thing I'm concerned about for them. But I also agree with you all that they're just such a good team right now, and it's hard to bet against them. So, well, I feel like that covers pretty much everything we need to touch on before the Avs, welcome the Seattle Kraken and hopefully score within the first 2 minutes. And hopefully it's EJ who scores or somebody in the fourth line, right? And maybe it'll go to overtime for Jackie, and maybe the Avs will win in overtime.
Gosh, I hope not. I have to drive back to Fort Collins tomorrow night after the game. That's going to be late anyway.
What do you think of these 8 o'clock and 8:30 starts?
Terrible.
Oh my goodness.
That's one reason why I might not even be able to go, because I'm reliant on the light rail, and it basically ends during the week at 11.
Oh shit.
So that's not not very good.
Yeah, that's Jackie be walking home, and that's a walk, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, well, somebody give Jackie a ride. What the heck? She's from Mile High Hockey. But who's all going to the game? Jackie, you said you may or may not make it. Evan, you'll be there. Ezra, you don't live in the state, so I don't think you'll be. Jacob?
I'll be at game 2.
Game 2? Nice. Yeah, I'll be at game 1.
I got my game out of my system last week. I went to the Winnipeg game, but
nice.
Probably not. We'll see when round 2 rolls around. I said win, not if, right?
Yeah.
So, Jinx.
Love it. I love it.
But we'll see.
Well, that pretty much covers it then. From everybody over here at Mile High Hockey, I'm Adrian. I'm here with Ezra, Jackie, and Evan, and Jacob. We had a full panel for the first time in a long time, and it's fitting because it's almost time for playoff hockey. Please head on over to our website for all of your Avalanche insight. That rhymed. And we will have you covered for your playoff preview, whatever it is you need. Send us your questions on Twitter. That's at Mile High Hockey or at MHH_lab. All of these broadcasts and podcasts are available on your preferred streaming platform, whether it be Spotify, Audible, iTunes, all that good stuff. Head on over there, give us a subscribe, and save and download all of our episodes. That really goes a long way to promoting this broadcast that we just put our lovely time and effort into for you all to enjoy. So here's to the Colorado Avalanche, hopefully beating the Kraken in game 1, round 1, and game 2, round 2. empty glasses up.
My glasses up.
You all have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.